guys, Patrick here. Today's video, we're going to start part 1 of our permanent control panel. Show you how we get here from a blank project box. It's going to be a two-part video. Part 1, actually it's going to be a multi-part video, but the main part's going to be a two-part video. Going to show you how to get our box built, the holes drilled, the switches mounted, the ground wires run. Part 2 is going to be installing this in the layout. All the other ends of the wires are still connected to the layout downstairs. So the next video, which should hopefully follow in a couple days, we'll be hooking up the box, and then there'll be some further videos down the line. Going to install some push button switches to trigger sound effects through speakers throughout various parts of the layout. We're also eventually going to add some LED indicator lights. But like I said, it's going to be a growing box, multi-stage process. So stay tuned for this episode. So as you remember from an earlier video, we built this temporary switch panel for the layout. It's gone. We're going to start working on the permanent switch panel. Still going to use the same switches. We're actually going to put a few more on for future growth. I haven't quite figured out the layout, but that's what we're going to work out now. We're also going to put some other momentary switches on here that I don't have yet. So we're going to leave some room to control some other things on the layout, like some sounds, some lights, etc. Give me a minute to get the camera set up. We'll get started. So this, like I said, this is a permanent box. Before we had 5 switches set up. Now we have 8. I'm going to keep them in a double stack over here, because we're going to have some other stuff on this side for lights and some momentary switches for sounds. I had originally wanted to put the control panel box actually into this box, but I decided not to. I'm not measuring because I don't care that much. This is a hobby layout, not a professional layout. So eyeballing is good for me. So we're going to drill some holes, and I've already lost my step down bit. It's the easiest way to drill holes, especially in project boxes like these. Set it on your little hole, helps for the drill to go the right way. And as you can see, I've got a piece of tape on my step down bit. To mark when I need to stop. But also it's first hole, so we're going to make sure that everything fits. And it does. And the hole doesn't need to be perfect, because it does have a cover-up plate. So now that I've drilled that one, let's drill some more. As you see, it makes a little bit of a mess. It's not the end of the world. Pull our tape off. We'll install our switches. I already tell they're a little crooked. Like I said, I don't really care. From 5 feet away, it'll look just fine. The other nice thing about these project boxes is they're cheap. So if you happen to mess one up, it's not the end of the world. One thing you've got to remember when you're installing or selecting the holes for these is you do have to make sure you leave enough room around them to fit back into the box. Essentially, that's all you got to do. If your holes aren't perfect, any little file we'll clean them up, because it is only plastic. So I'm going to pause the video, install the rest of these switches, and then we'll move on. As you can see, 8 switches. All on the back for all the wire. We're going to solder all the grounds together now. But I also left room. I haven't quite decided where I want to put them yet. So we're going to put some LED indicator lights in at some point. So now what I have to do is attach all the ground wires, because that's going to be the easiest thing to do, because they're all going to share a common ground. What I've done, a little hard to see, just took out the screws and I put solder in the holes, because it's far easier in tight confined spaces to use my soldering iron than it is to use the little screws. So that's what we're going to do. Just going to wait for my soldering iron to warm up and we'll get going. So basically, we just kind of daisy chain the ground wires. From one switch to the other. I forgot to tin my soldering iron. That one needs a little bit more solder. that I'm making all kinds of noise, I've temporarily lost all my other black wire. Oh, good thing is, we have more. Gonna do some real rough measuring. Since I haven't located my wire strippers since I moved, I'm also doing some backwoods wire stripping. Good old trusty pocket knife. I do have to tin these wires because this is not solid core wire. This is stranded wire. If you've never tinned a wire before, about to get a real quick, down and dirty lesson. We've got our wire, we've got our handy helper, we've got our soldering iron. Just go to the center conductor of the wire. In this case, it's a stranded wire. A little bit of solder. If you do it right, it'll suck up the solder in the blink of an eye. Now that I've done one, I'm going to attempt to get all these in the handy helper at the same time. But it's probably not going to let me. So we're just going to do it at a time, so let me do that. You'll also notice I'm not using very much solder flux, because you haven't seen me use any. Because solder flux is actually corrosive. Not corrosive, but it'll, if you don't clean up properly, it can be. And you can do it just fine without it, so I don't use it on every project. Whoop. Short one. poking these wires through the back. And I'm going to trim them, because once these are on, no intention of taking them off. Also use short wires to help with cable management, to keep it nice and clean. The longer the wire, the more you have to tidy it up. So that's our switch panel with all the grounds tied in. Put that to the side real quick. Dump out the screws from the bottom. We need an access hole for our wires to go in and out. All the other wires for the box are still down on the layout. But we need a way to get it into the box. So we're just going, I need to remove my little marker tape. We're gonna make it about right. Almost. Now our wires can pass in and out of the box. Now, the nice thing is the box has a lot of room for expansion. So we'll put our lid on temporarily. Like I said, over here and end up putting some momentary switches, push button switches. I don't have any in front of me to show you. That'll go to some sound cards, or should say sound effects cards, that'll be mounted down here, and the wires go out to speakers in various spots on the layout. So part 2 of this video, we'll be taking this and installing it on the layout. But this was part 1, so I will see you guys soon.